at the end of the day, all the stuff that we have on our list, it needs to get done, but not by us.
Mm.
And my mistake has probably been over the years, not delegating faster, not outsourcing faster, not getting stuff off my plate to be done by people who make far less money than I make.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hello, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm excited today to have Cameron Herold. Cameron, how are you doing today?
Good, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you joining us. I'm excited to have you. A little bit about Cameron. He's a CEO whisperer. He's the founder of the COO Alliance, and he's the mastermind behind hundreds of companies' exponential growth. Cameron's built a dynamic consultancy. His current clients include a Big Four wireless carrier and a monarchy. He's earned his reputation as the business growth guru by guiding his clients to double their profit and double the revenue in just 3 years or less. And this is some pretty cool stuff. At age 21, you had 14 employees. By age 35, you helped build $200 million companies. And then by the age of 42, you engineered 1-800-GOT-JUNKS growth from $2 million to $106 million in revenue, which is, holy cow, that's amazing. 3,100 employees, and that was just in 6 years. So tons of amazing stuff. And also been a speaker. I've heard you on TED, the TEDx, and you've got quite a few books, Double, Meeting Suck, Vivid Vision, Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, and Free PR. And I've actually got a couple of those books. So lots of good stuff and so much more to you, but I'll let you kind of let us in on a little bit more of who you are, what you've done, and kind of what your mission is right now.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, no, you covered it pretty well. I mean, I was groomed as an entrepreneur, have built a number of different entrepreneurial companies. I've been coaching real companies globally now for about 13 years. When I say real companies, I typically coach companies that have 50 to 500 employees. And I've done, as you mentioned, I've done paid speaking events on 26 countries and 6 continents, written 5 books, and my whole focus is helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. So I typically work with the entrepreneurs that understand what their core business and product is and are really looking to scale and grow that. And I just help, execute that growth and help give them the shortcuts to grow. I've always felt like entrepreneurs are trying to bang their head against the window, and if they work harder, they'll get out the door. But the reality is, they don't even notice the door is there. They keep banging their head on the window, and I like to give them the shortcuts to make it easier. So I've helped kind of systemize a number of different companies and create the tools to help any company grow.
Yeah, that's really awesome and so true. I mean, I find myself doing the same thing. I mean, banging my head against the window and the door's right there. And sometimes you have to take a step back, and helpful to have somebody like you that can actually look from the outside in. What are some of the things that you see these companies do that are banging their heads on the window? And how are you helping them get out the door? What are you seeing the most?
Well, yeah, I guess the one of the big ones that I've noticed with companies is that often the entrepreneur has an idea of what they want to build and what their company might look like, but they're not sharing it with anyone. And there's been a gap in the business world of a way to share the vision of what our company looks like. So I codified this idea called the vivid vision. And a vivid vision is a 4 or 5 page written description of what your company looks like, acts like, and feels like 3 years in the future. And it's a way to describe every aspect of your company as if it's already come true, almost as if you're walking around your company in the future and you describe what you see. You describe operations, you describe IT, you describe marketing and sales, you describe how the people are interacting with each other and what their customers are saying, what the market is responding to, what the media is writing about you. And I've kind of written it in a way and described it in a way that allows any entrepreneur to lean out 3 years in the future and describe their company in a finished state so the team can figure out how to make that come true. That tends to be the one of the big missing points that people, can actually leverage to grow their companies. I think a second one is that there's an inability for most entrepreneurs to focus. They're busy being busy. They're distracted. By nature, most entrepreneurs are on the spectrum for attention deficit disorder and bipolar disorder. So we're already a distracted group of people, which is one of our superpowers, but it's also one of our weaknesses. Right. Where when entrepreneurs can stay focused, when they can focus on their goals, when they can focus on a vision, when they can focus on a plan, when they can focus on the critical few things versus the important many, they tend to be able to grow their company. So that would be another core area that I tend to work with companies on.
I think you answered my question, or maybe partially did. I was going to ask you, like, how do you get these people to focus? But you just said something that I think was really important. You said focusing on the few critical areas versus the many important areas. And I think that's really hard for us as entrepreneurs to push away some of the busy work, maybe the important work, but not the critical work.
Yeah, it's like the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland said, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So when an entrepreneur is not clear on what they're building, they get distracted, right? Yeah. So as an example, I'm very, very clear on my vivid vision of what my company looks like in 3 years. I'm very clear on my core purpose, which is helping entrepreneurs make their dreams happen. So one of the reasons I agreed to even be on your podcast, if you work with this entrepreneurial audience of people that are starting to build real businesses, that's consistent with my core purpose, right? How I help entrepreneurs make their dreams happen is by writing books, growing their COO and the COO Alliance, by coaching entrepreneurial organizations, by speaking to groups of entrepreneurial organizations, very consistent with my core purpose. But if I got approached, let's say by government, I had 2 groups email me this morning asking me to speak at their events this year. Both of them are entrepreneurial organizations. So I'll say yes to those events. I'll give them my fee. I'll give them my marketing. It'll be good for their audience and it'll replicate. But let's say it was a government organization that wanted me to come and speak, I'd say no. If it was a huge corporate audience, unless it was about the book Meeting Suck, I would say no to the corporate world, because it doesn't fit with my core purpose and it doesn't fit with my content. So focus allows you to kind of focus on that flywheel and to gain momentum.
Yeah. So true, so important. And really just easy, like you said. Most of us have ADHD. I've never truly been diagnosed, but a lot of people that know me would say I probably have some sort of form of that. And
there's nothing wrong with ADD. I mean, the reality is attention deficit disorder, when you're an entrepreneur, means that you see everything. Yeah. It means you notice what's happening with the market, the economy, your suppliers, your customers, the website, your branding, your financials. You see everything, which you need to as an entrepreneur. If you were so myopic, like an engineer or an accountant or a lawyer, you could only see these tiny slices of the business, you'd miss everything else, which you'd fail. So in the school system, we're told that we have a disease, but we don't have a disease. We're just not like the teachers, but we're not supposed to be like teachers, right? And they want us to fit into their box, but we're not supposed to fit in. So only 3% of the population is bipolar. Only 3% of the population are entrepreneurs. Maybe there's actually more of a correlation with bipolar disorder and attention deficit disorder that allows us to not fit in, allows us to leverage our mania, allows us to be creative and get bored of ideas and delegate them to our teams who can move them forward. Maybe those disorders are actually our strengths. When you and I were talking offline, we mentioned I did a TEDx talk 10 years ago that was one of the few TEDx talks selected to be on the main TED website. And it was about raising entrepreneurial kids and how I was raised as an entrepreneur and how you can identify these traits in children. I think nowadays it's very dangerous that so many parents are trying to groom their kids to be entrepreneurs when they're not supposed to be at all. When I grew up, being an entrepreneur wasn't cool, right? Yeah. It was actually vilified. You were greedy, you were capitalist, you were profit-centric. So now that entrepreneurship is cool, I think we're pushing too many kids into being entrepreneurs. What we should be doing is teaching kids to be entrepreneurial, to have some entrepreneurial traits. But if the kids have the entrepreneurial DNA, yeah, we should teach them to be entrepreneurs. And the school system is already starting to embrace entrepreneurship finally as being cool. we're starting to understand it because of the mass media making it more popular.
Yeah, I listened to that that talk, and I actually had to stop it and like play it to my wife, because I think you were talking about kids and the ADHD, and my son is very hyperactive, and they're basically saying, look, we should get him tested, and he's probably got it, and just listening to that and hearing what you had to say, I was like, this is, if he's got it, no big deal. Like it's actually maybe a blessing.
It's not a disease. I mean,
Yeah.
for me, one of probably my biggest strengths in building 1-800 Got Junk was that I was able to have attention disbursement, right? It allowed me to see everything.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's a disease at all, but I wasn't supposed to be a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor. And in those cases, yeah, it probably would have hurt me, but that's not what my career path was.
Yeah. And he's going to probably have some difficulty in school, and that's okay. But
School sucks.
being able to harness it and, and truly be that entrepreneurial kid. I mean, that's a really cool, opportunity. So, what's a mistake either that you've made, or that a company that really sticks out for you, and how have you seen, or how have you learned from it and grown from it?
I'll give a mistake that is probably relevant for anybody listening right now, and it's related to delegating and getting stuff done. At the end of the day, all the stuff that we have on our list, it needs to get done, but not by us. And my mistake has probably been over the years not delegating faster, not outsourcing faster, not getting stuff off my plate to be done by people who make far less money than I make. Right? A lot of my tasks are minimum wage or low wage tasks that I can delegate to somebody so I can work on my creative genius, so I can work in my zone of this unique ability. When I coach, as an example, my coaching fee, my hourly rate for coaching, when you take my yearly rate divided by the hours that I dedicate to a client. So I only do 90 minutes per month for coach a client. They pay me $48,000 a year to coach them, and they get 90 minutes a month. So my hourly rate is $2,600 an hour, which means I shouldn't be doing any task that is less than $2,600 an hour.
Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of stuff on my plate that is $100 tasks, $50 an hour tasks, $20 an hour tasks. Right? It makes no sense for me to do tasks less than $100 an hour when I bill out at $2,600 an hour. But I get stuck in this kind of radical self-reliance of like, I can do it, I'll just get it done. But that doesn't scale. So I'm starting to think about my to-do list as my who to-do list. Just adding the word who in front of the to-do list, because it needs to get done, but not by me. So what I'm trying to do now is make a list of all the stuff that needs to get done and delegate it to somebody so that they can get it done faster than me.
Yeah. I think that's,
and then that momentum creates momentum, right? In the school system,
yeah.
we were told that we had to get straight A's. Why? No one's ever looked at our university or high school grades ever. No one's ever asked for my report cards or my transcript ever. So maybe the straight A's didn't matter at all. Maybe straight C minuses were good enough.
Yeah.
And momentum creates momentum, right? So I think what we have to do as entrepreneurs and smaller entrepreneurial companies is delegate faster, work on our unique abilities more, and try to get stuff out the door quicker, knowing that a solid B+, that momentum is going to create momentum.
Yeah, and that's different from what you hear sometimes. You hear that, it's got to be perfect, but I like that. Let's just get a solid B+. It's got to be good. We don't want to send junk out the door, but that momentum can create continual momentum to continue to grow your business. I like that.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned some good stuff, but what's maybe some 3 success tips that you can give our listeners and the audience to help push them to the next level, to get to those, 50 employees, 100 employees, to grow their business?
One is, again, to roll out a vision to the employees, so you can think about that. Another one is to think about growing your people. right? The more you grow your skills of your employees, the more they can grow the company for you. You know, I heard someone say, well, I spend all my time trying to hold people accountable. And I said, well, then hire accountable people. You know, I try to spend all my time motivating people, hire people that are motivated, right? I'm always having to train them, hire people that already have the training. Like, work harder at hiring the right people who've already done what you need them to do, and then keep growing their skill sets as leaders and align them with where you're going, and they'll do their work, right? But help remove obstacles. And you know, I've got a sales guy right now who's really good. I'm spending all my time focusing on growing his capacity as a salesperson, so growing his skill sets as a salesperson.
Sure. Yeah, that makes so much sense. I mean, and a lot of people, I think, are nervous about growing their employees too much because they're afraid, well, then they're going to be, too good and they're going to leave. Do you have fear of that, or does that not concern you?
No, I mean, it's like growing our kids, right? Our
Right.
kids are supposed to leave the house. At some point, people are probably going to have to leave as well. Let's let them leave.
Yep.
But to try to force them to stay means they're just not, they're really not that happy, right?
Yeah, and that's the key, is if you're allowing them to grow and you're allowing them to get better, for one, they're going to make your company better while they're there.
Mhm.
Um, but they're going to be happy too while they're there. And if you're holding them back or not allowing them to grow, not allowing them to get to their potential, you're just going to be happy. And man, people that aren't happy working for you just aren't going to be productive. They're not going to be good people to work for you.
Right. But if you really do focus on keeping them happy, and you really do focus on growing their skills, and you
Yeah.
really do focus on, growing them as business people, they're probably going to stay, because nobody's ever treated them that way. I think we're always worried about the people that are in the scarcity mindset. Well, they're going to leave you because you're in the scarcity mindset. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
so focused on growing their skills, they're probably going to feel so much love that they aren't going to leave. Or if they do leave, they're going to go somewhere else and realize it sucks, and they're probably going to come back to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
So
key to
true.
keep, the key to keeping people is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You got to cover their base pay and make them feel like they're in a good environment, make them feel loved and have friends, and they're working on worthwhile work. But, well, I don't want to grow their skills because I'm worried they're going to leave. Well, fuck, they're going to leave because you're not growing their skills.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not.
Scarcity never works. Scarcity doesn't scale.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Scarcity doesn't scale. I mean, if we're worried about what other people are going to take from us, if we're worried about what other, you've got people who are worried about having, in my industry, in real estate, we're worried about sharing our deals with somebody else because, well, then that means we get a little less cut of the deal. Well, that scarcity doesn't allow you to grow. That means instead of buying a, 500 unit apartment building, you're buying a 10 unit apartment building because you're not willing to be able to share that with other people, to bring other people in to have success as a group. You're only worried about yourself, only thinking about yourself.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's the same way with people that are worried about sharing the vision of their company. It's like, I don't really want to tell people what we're building. Great. So you want to spend all your time herding cats then,
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
sharing what you're building and getting people excited. It's kind of like the three guys that are sitting on the sidewalk making bricks. And they asked the first guy, what are you doing? He said, I'm making bricks. And they asked the second guy, what are you doing? He said, we're building a wall, and I get to make bricks to build the wall. I asked the third guy, what are you doing? He said, we're building a cathedral to worship God, and I get to build the left wall of the cathedral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's got more meaning in their work? Well, it's the person who's building a cathedral versus somebody who's making bricks. They're all making bricks. But when you have a vision of what you're building, that starts to align you in, what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
It starts to align you in purpose.
I think that's really powerful. I mean, obviously you believe that too. But the more I think about that just sharing your vision and sharing your understanding with everybody that is a part of it is so important because they get to see that. We all want to see where we're going, right? We all, a lot of business owners, and I think myself is included in this, we oftentimes think numbers orientated. We oftentimes think like what checks the boxes, but we don't think about the emotions that are attached to our business. And
Totally.
emotions, yeah, they play a massive role in the success of our business, in the success of being able to grow everything. And I look at bringing in investors into my deal. It's very emotional. They are worried about the numbers, but there are also a lot of emotional strings attached to it. and really anything. So yeah, just that vision, understanding where you're going, very critical. And I really appreciate you sharing that with it. I think people can take a lot right out of that with sharing your vision.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the key, right? Is once you actually have that part figured out, the vision part, then it's around growing their skills, removing their obstacles, um, and then delegating more to them and replicating more, so you can continue to be the caretaker of, growing the culture and growing the team and sharing the vision.
Yeah, yeah, awesome stuff. So where's your vision, your company? You said you've got a clear vision of your company. Where do you see yourself going in the next, year, 2 years, 3 years down the road?
Yeah, my real focus right now is scaling the COO Alliance. So I've created the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command. So really working to scale that organization up. And then, yeah, that's really the focus. I mean, the rest of what I do is supports that, right? My coaching is, um, I'd say a third of my coaching clients are in the COO Alliance. I would say that of the all of my books and content are devoured by people. My second in command podcast has been really great for listeners, because so many people interview the CO or the CEO.
Yeah.
I only interview the COO. We wanted the rest of the story, and so really kind of focusing on getting more listeners for the second in command podcast, because that scales the CO Alliance. But all my focus is around scaling the CO Alliance right now. Everything else I do is in support of that. So speaking, coaching, my books, everything else grows the CO Alliance.
And I like that focus. I like that you said it earlier on too. Everything you're doing is to focus on that one point. You're not going to speak to a government, group, because that just doesn't speak to who your audience is. You're laser focused on what you're doing. And that's so important instead of jumping around. Sure. Could you do some of that other stuff? Could you make a few bucks doing that? Could you, grow a little bit doing that? But no, but it would actually take away from your true purpose and vision of your company. Why COO and not why second in command?
Why second in command? Because
Yeah.
no one's actually focused on growing them, and they always try to go to, CEO events, entrepreneur events, where they don't fit in. Entrepreneurs are different from the operational mindset, right? You've got the visionary and the integrators, and there's no one's actually really focused on growing the integrators.
Sure.
And I was a COO 3 times, where I was always in that second in command role, and it's just it's a different need. So what we're trying to do is go after all of the second in commands of, YPO members, EO members, Vistage members, Genius Network members, all the members of these great organizations. It's actually targeting those people and giving them a place for them to grow.
Got it. Yeah, interesting. Because when you talk about growing that company, and you think of the CEO, but you're right, the COO, the second in command, is typically the implementer, right? The visionary is the CEO.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. I got a couple more questions before we wrap up, and I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
What's a way that you like to give back?
Well, that's interesting. One of them is doing podcast interviews, for sure. I mean, the more that I'm sharing my resources with people, again, if you consider my effective hourly rate is $2,600 an hour for every hour podcast I'm doing, I take away from my ability to do coaching. So that's one way, is sharing my systems and ideas with groups.
Yep.
Another one is mentoring entrepreneurs who don't quite qualify yet, and setting up random calls with them, knowing that if I can help them scale their company, that spins off jobs and spins off better relationships. Like I did a call yesterday with the guy, Jerry Kelly, who is really in the very early startup stage of his company. And I had a contest on my Facebook page where whoever submitted the funniest photos of them reading my books would win a coaching call. This guy was, hiking with my books, and he was ziplining with my book, and he swam out by Alcatraz with one of my books. I'm like, dude,
Nice.
you totally qualify. So, doing those kinds of things is helpful too.
Yeah. Awesome. I like it. I definitely appreciate it. The TED Talks and all that kind of stuff is just great stuff. And I heard you on your TED Talk. That was the first time I think I heard you, and then I heard you on another podcast as well. And really, really appreciate you getting out there, getting your word out there, and what you're trying to teach people, because you've got a lot of valuable stuff that you're talking about. I think I also heard you on maybe the other podcast was Hal Elrod's podcast, which you guys was it co-authored a book, or you wrote?
Yeah, we co-authored the Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs together.
Yeah.
Hal has this system called the Savers, the Morning Savers, which are silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, reading, and scribing, and that's how he starts his day early. And then I have a lot of the success habits for the rest of the day. So we talked and interviewed a number of very successful entrepreneurs, and I pulled their morning success systems in, and then I included the systems that I use to start a successful day, and then also the systems to continue as an entrepreneur with vision and hiring a second in command, and systems around focus. It's actually a great book. The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs is a great book for anyone listening, for sure.
Yeah. A lot of good books that you've written, and we'll put those in the show notes too, so our listeners can take a look at those. So yeah, you've got a lot of good stuff out there, and appreciate that. What's beyond your book, books? What's a favorite book? What's a go-to book for you that you can let our listeners know about?
One that I've read recently that was quite strong was The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Really, really solid. And then the second one that I've really enjoyed in this last year was Insanely Simple. And it was about just the simplicity and the force to keep everything simple at Apple. And I thought that there was some really, really strong systems in there about simplicity and how a big company can just keep everything completely simple. And that's why they've been so successful.
Yeah, awesome. This is actually a sidetrack, just because I was thinking about this, and obviously this is on like everybody's mind. COVID, everything that's going on, and there's, whether you're listening to this now or years from now, it doesn't matter. Something big is going to be happening at that time. That's distraction. What are you talking to your clients about during this time that to try to, because there's just a lot of uncertainty, right? And so any like bits of advice that you're giving that you can give to our listeners?
Well, right now, more than ever, people are looking to be led. Like they're looking for leadership somewhere. And they need someone who is leading them forward. And so that's one key one right now is leadership. The second one is that, misery loves company, right? That there's all kinds of places that you can go to talk to people that are negative and grumpy and frustrated and worried.
Yeah.
Are living in that scarcity mindset. But I'm trying to get my clients, my CEOs that I coach and the COOs that I work with to be focused on abundance and opportunity and driving things forward. Like right now, marketing is cheaper than it's been in the last 10 years. Like you should be spending money on marketing and sales. I'm hiring another salesperson right now. I've had 4 record months in a row with my revenue in my coaching business. So I think there's opportunities to really look for growth and to lead. Great opportunity to do acquisitions right now. Anybody who is 60 plus as an owner, 60 years old, they're tired. They don't have it in them to go through another recession. They'll take a reasonably good deal, and they'll probably finance 30% of you buying their company over the next 3 years as well. So great opportunity to do acquisitions right now. In fact, in my book, Double Double, if you read chapter 11 in Double Double, it's all about how to do well in an economy that's slow, right? It's how to grow when it's slow. And it's all of the real strong success habits that I used to scale a company back in 2008, 2009 during the global financial crisis. It's all the systems we used in 2001 to scale when the dot-com era blew up. So it's some really, really easy to implement systems on growing companies when we go into a declining economy.
Oh, that's awesome. It's good stuff, because I think right now we're not feeling the effects quite yet of kind of what's happened. Obviously, the government's putting a lot of money out there to people, and so businesses are starting to, obviously, many businesses are feeling the effects. A lot of consumers aren't feeling effects, and that's to come, I would say. So being able to grow and being able to maintain during this time, and what you said earlier about marketing. I mean, so many people throw the marketing out the door. That's an easy budget to cut, but it's a terrible budget to cut, at least in my opinion.
It's terrible.
Assuming yours.
what we should be doing is focusing on revenue generating opportunities, because revenue solves problems, right?
Yeah.
There's not a single problem that exists that a check can't solve. So everything we do should be driving a revenue and driving gross margin. But I think what happens in a scarcity mindset is often people, not only are they just focusing on cutting costs, but they're not focusing on growing at all. They're spending too much time reading all the negative press and getting sucked into the social media world instead of actually deciding where they're going and going there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So this show is called Pillars of Wealth Creation, and we're trying to focus on building wealth, and whatever that means to you. It means something different to everybody. My final question for you is, what are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Wow, 3 pillars of wealth creation. Um, One would be investing in myself, that if I can grow my skills, if I can join mastermind groups, if I can get coaching, if I can invest in growing me and growing my team, that's a huge one. Secondly is realizing that I don't have to worry about how I do something, it's who can do it, right? It's always solved by a who versus a how.
Yeah.
So it's looking to my network and finding out who can do things. And then I guess a third would be just, momentum creates momentum, that it's not about perfection. If I can just get stuff out the door, that's going to scale, right? So it's all about the low hanging fruit and doing things that are easy to implement, systems that I can just kind of get into orbit that'll continually grow.
Yep. Yep. I've
Those,
seen that.
those might be 3 off the top.
I love it. I love it. All really good things. Obviously, investing yourself, just super important. And then I really like how you talk about, realizing not what you can do, but who can do it. We always think, as you said earlier, like even you're guilty of it, and I'm guilty of it, but we're all guilty of it. Like we're doing this $20 an hour stuff that, because we can do it, right? It's just, we know how to do it. It's easy to do. We're just going to do it. Most entrepreneurs are people that we can do stuff. We just feel like, well, we could just get it done ourselves. But is that really the best use of your time? So instead of realizing that you can do it, realize who can do it. And the last thing is that building momentum. And I've seen that play over and over. Once you get that momentum, you've got to keep it going.
Yeah. Well, and if you do stuff that actually, like an example of something that creates momentum for me is every media interview that I do gets shared on social media by the interviewer and by me, and it gets added to the press page of my website, which drives SEO. That's like a little satellite in orbit that keeps working for me, right? It will just keep working for me. Every interview I do on the Second in Command podcast where I interview somebody just keeps working for me.
Keeps going.
Ad roll, when I put retargeting in place, that just sits there. I don't have to do anything. It just keeps working for me. So for me, it's all about these little things that I can do that will continually drive momentum. My website, my CameronHerold.com website, I spent some money this year to have my new website redone, rebuilt, rewritten, and it's really strong. I'm getting fantastic comments from people just about the content on the CameronHerold.com. That is momentum. Each of my books going out the door is momentum. So I try to get things up and out the door that will always generate results in my sleep. I think that's where wealth comes from, and also where the free time comes from, right? Which is wealth as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Well, Cameron, look, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the massive value you're adding to the entrepreneurial space, to business owners, giving back, and definitely commend you for that. I think you're doing an excellent job, and excited to, have you on the show and be able to share with my audience and give so much to them as well. So tons of value you're able to add. I definitely appreciate it. Appreciate you being on.
Hey man, you're welcome. Thanks, Todd. Thanks for having me. Send me the link when this goes live.
I will. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Appreciate you too.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. But your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to VentureD.com venturedproperties.com, venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out, and we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.